Oh, I so have to show you that. Hi, it's Todd from Todd's Workshop and Todd Cutler here, and today I'm back with the Bushcraft Survival Crossbow. This beautiful, ugly thing that I made using only Todd Cutler Bushcraft knives. And now with these 3 improved, lovely bolts for it. Now what I'm going to do is, well, I'll talk you through the modifications on this because this is a little bit different to last time you saw it. But we'll do that when we go and shoot these later on in the range. But what's really important is, in a survival situation, you have to make do with what you've got, what you can find. Now you might be in the middle of a city, zombies. You might be in the middle of nowhere. There might be a few little bits and pieces around. I don't know what your situation is. You could be in the jungle, you could be in the desert. What you need to know is how these things work and why they do what they do. Because you're intelligent people, you're bushcrafters, you are used to making do and mending. But if you don't actually get what this is and how it works and how it functions, you can't help yourself. So it's that old thing about give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he eats forever. And that's what this is about. This is about teaching you how to make these things. I'm not going to individually craft each one. I'm not going to show you that part of it because I think you can do that. And there's loads of internet things about that, loads of YouTube films. But what there's not so much about is how they work and what they do. And crossbows, not in the whole bushcraft situation, but in the reality, it is my job. I make these things, I get it. Now before we begin, I'm going to show you this modern crossbow bolt. Now the first thing I'll say is it has 3 fletchings on it. You're probably all very familiar with that. But of course, there is no central groove on our bow that we've made in the woods. So you can't have 3 fletchings, you have to have 2, one just sticking out side to side. Basically like the old school crossbow bolts were back in the medieval times. So I'm going to put this down and then we're going to talk you through the modern one. Now this is, of course, a crossbow bolt. It has a completely straight shaft on it. Beautiful carbon fibre straight shaft. 3 fletchings which have been put on absolutely straight. And a head which doesn't have to be that heavy. We're going to come to the roll of heads in a little bit. But you've got a little head there. Doesn't weigh very much. Don't know how much, 100, 125 grains, something like that. A couple of grams. But that's all you need because everything about this is perfect. Now, I know you guys are great out there, but I can promise you the bolts you're going to be making are not going to be perfect. So we're going to put that one aside and we're going to talk about what we are going to make. I have 3 different crossbow bolts here that have all been made in different ways, different materials. But look at the fletchings on those. We're going to come to those and talk about them later. And the same, we'll talk about the heads later on as well. Now, whichever bolt or arrow you choose, the layout is the same, of course. You have a head, you have a shaft, you have some fletchings. And they all do different things, and we're going to talk about all of them. But we're going to start with the head. Now, rather obviously, you want it to inflict the damage on the prey that you're hunting. So whether it is the edges of a broadhead or a carved bone head or a long wooden point like this one, which would be really good against birds, for instance, it doesn't really matter what it is, but you are carrying the offensive element of your arrow on the point. Now, that's true of all of them, but it has another function, and that is to add some mass onto the front. And you want the mass because when you push this arrow, this bolt, from behind, it's inherently unstable. It's like having a long stick and pushing it. It wants to topple over. But you put a bit of weight on the end, and actually, it's harder to topple over. It's inertia. It doesn't want to start it moving off in a different direction. It wants to carry on in the straight line. And so you put a bit of weight on the front, and that just dampens the whole thing down. It just slows it down and stops it being so twitchy, and it allows your fletchings or your dragging element at the back to just correct the course and to keep it in a straight line. So that's why you have mass on the front, not just cutting edges. Now you want to achieve that upfront mass, however you can do it, but you need to put something on there. So this one here is very simply just a larger stick which I've whittled down, drilled a hole in the back, bonded it in with a bit of pine resin. Here is the tip of a horn, which I've found. This one, I've actually tied it on with some cordage, because I've, figured maybe you don't always have glue that you've made. This one, I've actually used a dense wood. It's boxwood. So this is probably the lightest of them, but still, it now is actually relatively hard. You could even fire harden that. We're going to do some penetration tests later on some meat. Little bit of bone. So that's going to be really quite an evil head. And then again, an antler tine. So however you choose to add weight onto the front of your arrow, add weight on. You need it. There's a very simple demonstration of what it means to put mass on the end of a shaft and effectively the inertia that that creates. So I've got 14 inches, 35 centimetres of arrow shaft here. I'm going to balance it. Whoop. Not that easy. Going to put a bit of weight on the end. A lot easier. And that is all it is. Same shaft with a bit of weight. The head does exactly the same thing. It inherently dampens, softens, keeps everything a lot more stable. And now we're going to have a look at our arrow shaft or bolt shaft and the role this plays in the projectile. So I'll put it down and we're back to balancing arrow shafts again. Now you might not realise the similarity between this and pushing it, but of course if you are, although I'm doing that vertically, if you're pushing an arrow with a string, it's essentially just like balancing it on the back end. It's the same process in essence. So again, you can see I have to, I have to work quite hard to get that to balance. This is a much longer one. And now I should be able to balance it much, much better. And that doesn't have a weight on the end. So this time it's two plain arrow shafts, but the longer one balances better. And this comes down exactly to crossbow bolts and arrows. Is if you have a really short crossbow bolt, it has to be so perfectly made because otherwise it just unbalances and it doesn't go straight. So the bottom line is, in a survival situation, make your arrows, make your crossbow bolts longer. They will be more stable. The last thing I'd like to say about the shaft on your crossbow is that it's essentially just a spacer. It's a spacer between the mass of your head and the drag of your fletchings, or the stabilisation of your fletchings. We're going to come to that in a minute. When I made these shafts, I started with beech twigs like this one here, which is, well, not really very straight. So I heat bent them. And I think it's a really important thing for you to know how to do and why you're doing it and how you go about it. So come and have a look in the workshop and I'll show you how we turned that into things like that. Well, I'm here to heat bend my shafts now, and as you can tell, this is not a lovely fire in the woods. Being England, of course, it started to rain the moment I wanted to go out there. But this is heat, and it's the same thing as a fire in the woods. So basically, what you're trying to do is warm up the moisture, warm up the fibres of the wood, and that allows it to become flexible, and you can bend it. You can bend it to your will. As it cools down, it will then be a bit straighter than it once was, and then you can do the whole process again. If your arrow shafts are already bone dry, then what you can do is wipe them over with a bit of water, because the conductivity of the water and just dampening the wood slightly really helps the heat to get into the centre. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get the heat into the fibres of the wood, and that's what will allow you to bend it, and indeed for it to take a set. And that's what you want. You just want it to stay straight. So as you can see, it's not great, but it's not too bad at the moment. Definite kink here. You can see it on the end there. So I'm just going to warm up this bit, and then we'll try and bend it straight. So what you do your first one. You won't get it perfect. Go do your second, do your third, then come back to your first one again. And just start to bend out any bits, make them straight. So I'm going to put that down now. I'll start with my next one. Here's a challenge. And for the record, these are beech. Look at that. That's going to take a bit of work. So look how flexible that is now. And that's just with a bit of heat. We'll get these straight and we'll see you in a minute. We're back to talk about fletchings. These things on the end. But I guess you knew that. Now this is something that's interesting that you might not realise. You do not have to fletch arrows with feathers. Right? So you can fletch it with feathers, but there's certainly indigenous tribes who fletch theirs with leaves, and that works just fine. But you can also do it with just a bit of fluff. Old rope, bits of threads off your shirt. In the case of this one, seed pods from grass. All of these things are creating a little bit of drag on the back. And what that does, only a little bit of drag, but what that does is, as you can see there, it's travelling now straight towards you. Right, great, it's stable. If it starts to rise, Now, if you look at all this fluff at the back here, it's now presenting more of itself into the wind direction, the air direction, and so the air pushes it back up, and it naturally wants to stabilise. It goes the other way, stabilises. Less so from side to side with the crossbow bolt because you've only got the two fletchings, but it still does it to a certain extent. So the fact is, you might have fin stabilisation on a really nice thing like a modern crossbow bolt, but it's actually difficult to achieve because these fins are never going to be perfect. So really what you're relying more on is a bit of drag. And what it means by having a bit of drag is having something on the end of your shaft. And don't get too hung up on how perfect it is. We'll shoot these. Let's go and shoot them now, and we'll show you what they do. I'm down on the range now, and the first test has to be, does it even penetrate flesh? Because when I first showed this Bushcraft crossbow, I made it in an afternoon from the wood that was just available around me here, so I didn't select the best stuff. But actually, go back if you haven't seen it, go back to the first film. You can see how I craft this thing using only Todd Cutler Bushcraft knives. That was it. But now what I've done is I swapped it out for another bow that's made exactly the same way. There's no difference in how it was done. This one was actually by a friend of mine, Joe Gibbs, amazing archer, for a different project of mine. But the technology is the same. You could do this, it's just a piece of ash. Drawing about 55 pounds, something like that. So here is the question. Will it penetrate? Oh, it's a bit Matt Easton. So it's definitely a bit harder to draw. So first up, we have a horn point and my grass seed fletchings. Does it penetrate? Yes, it does. Well, that does the job, doesn't it? Right, let's go again with the next one. Boxwood. Does it penetrate? Yes, it does. I think we're getting the picture here. Right, well, I suppose I might be able to squeeze one in with this last one, which was a bit of blackthorn. It's sort of more for birding, really, is what I made it for, but let's see. Well, you can get the idea from that. It really does work. So we're going to shoot it again for distance and see how it goes. Oh, I so have to show you that. Look, it was Robin Hooded. Brilliant. I wasn't expecting this. Hang on. Maybe sometime. Oh, there we go. Yeah, got a bit mangled at the end. Can you see that? But, well, it works. Down on the range now at around, I don't know, 12, 14 metres, something like that. I doubt you're ever going to want this to use this bow or more than that. But I'll talk you through the bolts now. So 3 different bolts made in 3 different ways. So the first one, a horn tip. It's just got a ridge on it and it's been lashed on. So that's been drilled deep enough to take the shaft in case you don't have any glue, can't get any glue, can't make it. This one just whittled down, just a bit of blackthorn, I think, drilled out and then glued with a pitch pine glue. Again, this one, the shaft has been split and the tang of the boxwood head pushed in, whole lot overwrapped with pitch pine glue and string. Making string, making pitch pine glue, that sort of thing. I'm no expert on that, and I can just watch some videos and come and tell you, but it's just like second-hand information. It's a waste of time. Go and look at people like, I don't know, Survival Lily. I really like her stuff. She covers all these things. Go and have a look at what she does. It's really good. But then we come to the other end here. This is actually a bay leaf, so you can season dinner afterwards. So the shaft has just been split and then just tied on in place here. You've got to get it right up at the knock end here because otherwise the string of the bow will split it. Pitch pine glue again and some pigeon feathers, and then this one is just grass seeds, some fluffy grass seeds that have just been tied on in a couple of places just to create a sort of a drag generator, really. So let's go shoot them. Bay leaf and boxwood. Oh, not bad. So that veered a little bit to the right. Might be the bolt, might be my shooting. But, you know, this is the first time I've really shot this bow in this configuration. These all take a bit of learning, but it wasn't a bad shot. Horn tip, fluffy grass for the fletchings. Oh, that was just under. I mean, literally just under. So, you know, you might laugh at those fluffy fletchings, but they really work. So we'll go again. Oh, and just over. So yes, not brilliant, But actually, it is the first time I shot it with 3 different bolts, so we'll go again. But I think that's pretty respectable. Right, round 2. Some people ask if there are any advantages over a crossbow and a bow. Well, you can shoot from cover with a crossbow, and that can be quite useful because you can leave it spanned and loaded, and the only thing that moves is your finger. Oh, it's a bit high. Just missed it. But you know, that's pretty good. Fluffy grass and horn. I think this is my favourite one. Oh, that was good. That was like genuinely good. So I think we're going to go again on that. Right, last up and then back to base to conclude. Oh, oh, that far. Well, no dinner for me today, but let's go back to base. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed it. But please sign up to the Todd Cutler newsletter and to the channel, because all sorts of interesting things are happening. Survival crossbows, well, longbows to come, I think, probably, made out of the bush. Trebuchets, weird weapons, lots of stuff about crossbows and armour and all manner of stuff. So there is interesting things going on here. Sign up and come and join in. Thanks.